The house used to be full of sound, laughter from the hallway, slammed doors, arguments over cereal, the television too loud, the music louder. Now it was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind that settled on the furniture like dust. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table with a half eaten piece of toast and stared out the window, wondering when things had changed. It wasn't sudden. That was the worst part. If her children had one day stood up and declared they no longer respected her, she could have fought back, shouted, cried, demanded answers. But instead, the shift came like a slow tide. Fewer phone calls, dismissive tones, decisions made without her input, suggestions ignored, comments like, you wouldn't understand, or that's not how things work anymore. It hurt more because it had once been so different. She remembered when they were small, how they clung to her hand, how they cried for her when they were sick, how they believed she could fix anything. And maybe back then, she could. She stitched up ripped clothes, baked birthday cakes from scratch, stayed up all night when fevers ran high. She was their center. Now, at 74, she sometimes felt like a side note. It wasn't that they were cruel. Her son, Michael, still visited, but often with a kind of distracted obligation, checking his phone more than asking how she was. Her daughter, Lauren, called occasionally, but often steered the conversation toward what Eleanor should or shouldn't be doing. You really need to sell that old car, or you should get a cleaner in here, Mom. It's too much for you. Good intentions, maybe, but it felt like control, not respect. One afternoon, after Michael left in a hurry, Eleanor stood by the door for a long time. He had waved without looking up. No hug, no thanks for dinner, not even eye contact. Just a distracted goodbye as if she were an assistant in a waiting room. Later that evening, Eleanor did something she hadn't done before. She wrote it all down. Not just the recent slights, but the history, the sacrifices, the love, the mistakes too. She wanted to understand if she had caused this change, if she had somehow lost their respect. She realized something as she wrote. Respect, like love, couldn't be demanded. It had to be maintained. And just like any relationship, the one between parent and child evolved. She couldn't control their behavior, but maybe she could control how she responded to it. The next time Lauren called, Eleanor didn't rush to say yes to every suggestion. When Lauren said, "You really shouldn't be driving anymore," Eleanor replied, "I appreciate your concern, but I'll decide when I'm ready. Let's talk about something else." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then, surprisingly, a soft laugh. "Fair enough," Lauren said. With Michael, she took a different approach. She asked him one evening, directly but gently, "Do you feel like you still need me in your life?" He blinked, surprised. "Of course I do. Because sometimes it feels like I've become invisible," she said. "I know I'm older. I know I'm not the person I was when you were little, but I still have thoughts, ideas, and feelings. I'd like to feel like we're still equals, even if our roles have changed." He didn't say much then, but a week later, he showed up early. He helped with the dishes without her asking. He sat down and told her about a decision he was trying to make at work. And he asked what she thought. It wasn't a complete transformation. It wasn't a return to the reverence of childhood, but it was a step. Eleanor began rebuilding the relationship on new ground. She stopped playing the part of the endlessly patient, silent parent. She voiced her needs. She reminded them, kindly, of her experience. She asserted her space, her autonomy, not with resentment, but with clarity. She also began to invest more in her own life. She joined a community book club. She started taking walks with a neighbor. She found ways to feel respected by herself, even if no one else offered it that day, because that was part of it too. As much as she wanted their respect, she had to respect herself first, not in the abstract, but in practical ways. She stopped apologizing for getting older. She stopped pretending not to mind when her opinion was dismissed. She stood a little taller. One evening, Lauren came by with her youngest, a daughter just entering adolescence. Eleanor listened as the girl described a drama at school. When she paused, Eleanor said, "You know, when I was your age, I felt that way too, but it helped when I started writing things down." The girl looked curious. "Did it work?" "Still does," Eleanor said, smiling. And Lauren looked at her mother then, with something in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or rediscovery. Children grow up. They move on. They forget that their parents were whole people before they were born. Sometimes they stop listening. But old age doesn't mean surrendering dignity. It doesn't mean fading into the background. It means evolving again. And for Eleanor, that evolution didn't come from demanding respect. It came from becoming a version of herself that didn't rely on others to grant it. She began to live, not as a relic, not as a burden, but as a woman with opinions, strength, and memory. Someone whose voice, once more, mattered, even if it trembled.